A decisive alliance in history, what to expect from the NATO summit. Russia in a ring of fire, Novosibirsk trembles for the first time, Belgorod can no longer be saved, the last refinery, Putin's last chance, and he missed it. Ukraine launches a decisive scenario, 1,000 drones on the capital of the Russian Federation. The Kremlin realized the old Russia will be no more. Budanov makes the final move. The whole world is talking about Putin's defeat. Russia is on the brink of a civil war. The people are going against the government, the Kremlin is losing control, the fuel crisis is turning into mass protests, raids, strikes, popular revolt against the Kremlin, the truth that will shock everyone. Don't miss the most important things right now. Welcome everyone to our YouTube channel. Today our guest is Ivan Stupak, a military analyst and commentator. Glad to see you.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation.
Let's get started. With the NATO summit taking place in Ankara, the media is full of headlines saying that this summit will be decisive. Some expect strong decisions for Ukraine. Some expect the unblocking of billions in aid for Ukraine. What do you expect from this summit?
Well, at least a trajectory for further movement. Look, I'm not a big optimist, not because everything is bad, but specifically regarding the summit. A summit it's a very general, amorphous gathering of people who meet, drink coffee, behind the scenes drink Prosecco or maybe some good champagne, socialize, talk, but they don't adopt anything serious. They don't sign any serious decisions, so everything happens later. Yes. I'd like to see something like a political direction, for example, let's say Donald Trump somewhere on the sidelines, as they say, on the sidelines of the summit, off camera, somewhere over coffee, near a column, met with President Zelensky, well, somewhere like that. They talked and he said, Volodymyr, I've made a decision here. We are after all launching the production of Patriot missiles in Europe. Yeah. Here we are in Germany. I'll give the order now. We'll start this preparation process. Let them prepare the legal documents. There, that decision is fire, if you ask me. Everything else. Vladimir Putin wants to end the war. I see it in his eyes. That's all nonsense. It's all just words. It's just air coming out of Donald Trump's diaphragm, and it doesn't affect anything. So I want to see some more or less concrete achievements. For example, again, hypothetically, say Volodymyr Zelensky meets with Friedrich Merz, also somewhere on the sidelines. They're sitting somewhere drinking coffee in a garden. And Friedrich Merz says, listen, we've agreed here, we have some system being produced there, a Patriot analog, IRIS-T, even if it's Franco-Italian, but we've agreed that we'll be making missiles. I gave the order, we've already provided the funding, I signed all the documents before heading to the summit, we've started releasing the funds. Basically, in 4 months, we'll see the first missiles that we'll deliver to you, and you'll be shooting down ballistics. Now, this is exactly what's needed. Everything else is, once again, just empty talk.
Let's discuss a bit more the events that took place before the start of the NATO summit. Such a wave of escalation from the Russian Federation, terrible shelling of Kyiv and Ukraine. Today, drones flew towards Moscow, and Zelensky also stated that there will be more of them in the future. Not 10, not 15, not 20, not 100, but 1,000. And it was said so interestingly, 1,000 of what? Drones and missiles. To what extent can strikes, both those on the capital of the Russian Federation and those deep inside the Russian Federation, since fiery greetings have also arrived at the Omsk oil refinery, actually influence, even in the slightest possible way, any shifts or changes in Putin's system?
Good question. Let's try to have a discussion about it. We've all seen the strikes on Belgorod that were turning Belgorod into an average Ukrainian city, which has been living for the last 2.5 years under constant shelling, no electricity, no gas supply, constant casualties among people. In other words, we are showing Russia what can happen to your city. Has this affected the situation in any way? No, unfortunately not. They couldn't care less in the Kremlin. They simply don't talk about Belgorod. Even regarding Moscow, when there was the previous massive strike, they devoted literally 1 minute to the shelling of Moscow across all their central TV channels. 1 minute in total for everyone. Some 20 seconds, some 30 seconds, up to a minute of time. That's it. So they won't talk about it. Yes, I agree that Moscow here should play the role of such a big exception. Moscow and St. Petersburg. Because Moscow and St. Petersburg, well, even more so, Moscow is a postcard city, a picture city, a showcase city where everything must be perfect. The coffee is hot, everyone is smiling, nonconformists are riding scooters. Well, again, just riding around on scooters, there's electricity, there's heat, the shops have everything basically. That's what the Kremlin wants to continue seeing. Now, after the recent strikes over the last few months, the situation has really started to change. A shift? Yes, a shift. What do I mean? Let's imagine the political map of the Russian Federation. Let's say, okay, the entire Russian Federation, imagine it, right? The far left part is St. Petersburg, Moscow, and then further east towards the right, off we go. Close your eyes, imagine it. Ukraine is hitting Kapotnya. Kapotnya is in the southeast of Moscow. It's a large oil refinery. It was heavily modernized in 2021, done in a European style. Everything is very close, everything is very compact. Thanks, it turned out great, our guys hit it. By the most minimalist, optimistic estimates, it won't be operational until the end of 2026. But in the internal chats of Russian oil workers, they say this: all year the plant won't be refining. Oh, wow. It's out of the chat. Fuel problems are starting in Moscow. In emergency mode, they're starting again. Imagine the map of Moscow, the Russian Federation. The furthest western point, that's to the left as we move, is Belarus. 2 refineries, Mozir, Novopolotsk, they're refining gasoline 24/7, supplying Moscow because, as I said, Moscow is a picture city, a showcase city where everything must be perfect. But for Moscow, this is not enough. It's insufficient. There's really, I think, about 15 million people living there, including visitors. So, way too many. For this, in order to provide, moving a bit to the east, they need, well, east relatively, Ryazan and Yaroslavl, which supply fuel in massive volumes to Moscow through a system of pipelines. Here are the recent strikes. Ryazan again, Yaroslavl under attack again. We're paralyzing these refineries. Moving east. Accordingly, we understand that all resources go to Moscow and they're taken from the east. And the Omsk refinery, that was the refinery that was in the top 10 largest refineries in the Russian Federation, which until recently had never been under attack by the armed forces of Ukraine. And now, what has the situation come to? That all the resources are being pumped to Moscow. Omsk, which was pumping to Moscow, is likewise forced to somehow start balancing, both to Moscow and to the east, because there's a fuel shortage everywhere. And in Omsk there are huge lines right now. So we have a window of opportunity before the parliamentary elections in the Russian Federation in order to influence the situation. Looking ahead, I can imagine that these specific strikes won't influence the Russians in terms of saying, that's it, we must stop this war. Because Russians, they clearly emphasize one thing. It's all the Ukrainians, it's all Ukrainian strikes. So, to foster an anti-war stance in them, I think will be extremely, extremely difficult with such strikes. But we can take all of this, mass and shape it into a beautiful figurine that we need. What do I mean? Okay, yes, they have a cause and effect link. No fuel because the Ukrainians are striking. No question about it. Fine, yes, that's how it is. But Ukraine, using its various, most diverse leaders, not even leaders, okay, through social media, through Russian social media, should form the following thought in the Russian citizen. Yes, refineries were attacked by Ukraine. But your government should have provided you with gasoline. They should have thought about you because there's plenty of gas in Russia. This is a country that's in the top 3 for oil production in the world. You have plenty of oil, plenty of gas, you have everything, you have many refineries, but the government doesn't provide for you. The government failed to organize the logistics. Moreover, Moscow took everything for itself. Pay attention to Moscow. More. In every region, there are privileged groups of people like officials and security forces who get served out of turn. And that's where the big problem lies. So there are other areas for us to get into and ways to pressure the situation from our side.
And the government fled to Valdai.
Yes, there's this idea of forcing Putin to flee to Valdai, but I disagree with Volodymyr Zelensky here. Why? Because we don't know. Nobody knows at any given moment where Vladimir Putin is. Nobody knows. He has many duplicate offices, meaning offices that look exactly like one another, yes, or like each other, there are several of them, and you won't know if it's Valdai or Sochi or, I don't know, someplace in the Far East or the Kremlin. Well, it's unclear. So he can be in some office with a Moscow Kremlin tag at the bottom, but in reality it could be far beyond the Ural Mountains, but we'll never know.
What do you think? What kinds of events could truly become a point of no return for the Kremlin, after which, from that moment on, fighting will no longer be possible? Basically make any sense for Putin or for the Kremlin as well. You know, it's interesting for me. When I talk to military analysts, they talk about naturally the military factor. If I talk to political scientists or consultants, they say there must be strong political decisions from China and the United States of America. What's your take on this?
It's a tough question. You like tough questions. Well, that's right. If you want big answers, ask tough questions or big questions. This question, I think, can't be categorized as just military, political, or economic. It has to be like, a hellish witch's brew, a volatile mixture, a bit more of this, a bit less of that, like an eagle's claw thrown in, a frog's leg, some other substance crumbled in, all mixed and boiled. It all depends. It all depends. Well, let's say, okay, the front. Stopping the Russian army is truly task number one, meaning forcing the Russian army to suffer maximum losses so there's no advancement on the fronts, and stopping them at the line of demarcation. But it's a massive undertaking that also depends on undermining the Russian economy. Unfortunately, the Russian economy is resilient, it's large, and they have resources. They're ready to take these financial resources from education, healthcare, and missions to Mars. Forget about them, those flights to Mars. Like Putin announced that we'd fly to Mars, no one flew to Mars, the money was taken and sent to the war. So we need to undermine the economy inside the Russian Federation. Okay, we need to use pressure on the Russian Federation from the outside, like China. But I agree, I fully support the idea that there are like 2.5 people who can actually stop this war. That's Xi Jinping, that's Narendra Modi, and Mr. Erdogan, the president of Turkey. Well, now the president of Turkey, I think, has less influence on the Russian president, but nevertheless.
He has a different task right now. He needs to unblock the United States of America's program for the F-35.
Yeah, he's not interested in the rest for now. China could do it, but China's making money. China has made a lot of money selling goods to both Ukraine and the Russian Federation. They are simply beneficiaries. So the longer the war lasts, the more they earn from it. So once again, it's only in combination altogether. And of course, the cherry on top, the skull on the cake, is of course the death from natural causes of Vladimir Putin. That's the only thing I think that can stop this war quite quickly. A non-violent death, because if it's violent, if it's recognized as coming from the outside, then there's a risk of the Russian Federation uniting around the body of the deceased leader who was killed by the damned capitalists. And if his own people kill him, then that's even better. But then again, who will dare? Is there such a force ready to do it? It's not visible yet.
Budanov says that right now we have this peak of escalation, then there should be de-escalation, and, well, the approach to this turning point in the war. Do you see this turning point in the near future?
Well, yes, we are moving in the direction of a turning point. Somewhere this turning point, it's visible, of course, but let's be honest. Without the sugarcoating, without the rose-colored glasses, the Russian Federation has no desire to stop offensive actions. At all. Yes, it's a fact. We hear all of Putin's statements that they don't want to limit combat operations to specific regions. Yes, where the Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and a bit of the Luhansk regions are. They say, and I quote, "We won't give the Kyiv regime such a gift." That is, not at all, period. They have no desire to stop without capturing the entire Donetsk region. Vladimir Putin lives in his own world. He's like, a little child, he's playing with toy soldiers there, he's defeating everyone, everyone's losing, and it seems, well, just a little more pressure. Plus, every day they bring him brave reports that we are advancing, we have successes everywhere. We are 2 kilometers from the western border of Kostiantynivka. Although the old man, he really doesn't, remember that back in November, 3 people, the commander of the Russian army in this direction, Defense Minister Belousov and Valery Gerasimov, the chief of the general staff. They told me with a straight face that, yes, Konstantinovka was captured. Oh, I'm sorry. Kupiansk is captured. Now, wait a second. So is it captured?
Or liberated.
That's what they... So is it liberated, or are you 2 kilometers from the western outskirts? Wait a second. Where are you? Are you there or here? And so he lives in some kind of parallel universe of his own. Everything suits him there, so he definitely doesn't plan on stopping.
We've talked about the NATO summit and how the United States of America will conduct itself there, what will happen to Ukraine, what decisions might be made or not, but we've somehow bypassed the Europeans. Because here, in principle, is also an important component whether, the European Union is already starting to slowly understand and prepare for life without the United States of America and basically without NATO. Any global decisions, do you think, will be made in this direction? Will Europe be strong? Will it be without the United States of America?
I'll tell you more. After Volodymyr Zelensky's quarrel in the Oval Office in 2025, I'll say sincerely, I spoke back in March with certain German colleagues there, and then they told me, we've passed the point of no return. That is, then they say, we realized that the point of no return in relations with the US has been passed. Yes, breaking. All relations is incredibly difficult because there are so many of them for so many years, so many decades, 75 years they relied on the US. Well, of course, it's a partner, it's a pillar. The world would sooner cease to exist than the US would refuse to help us. As it turned out, the exact opposite can happen. And then they started investing in their own defense. Yes, it's long, yes, it's slow, because while you're used to there being an adult in the room and he tells you what you need to do. Put on your socks, put on your boots there, because it's wet outside. Well, yes, of course, I'll put it all on. But here, you have to make decisions on your own. And so the Germans, for example, are revising the program for creating their fleet. They are moving away from building large ships in favor of small ones. Britain says to, listen, yes, excuse me, why the hell do we need these huge ships? Yes, we're a maritime power, we need them, but in that quantity, large ships, well, there's no need for them. We need small mosquito fleets with which we can attack anyone, anywhere, at any point on the globe and maintain our security, just like Ukraine is doing. Plus, I'll tell you even more. I know for a fact that Western military personnel have been coming to Ukraine since around 2020. The end of 23, the beginning of 24. Not to teach us at all. That is, the question is no longer, we'll tell you. On the contrary, please, teach us how you do all this. And so our military takes them, for example, closer to the frontline regions. For those who want to learn even more, they say, this isn't enough, we want more intensity. They're taken to the front lines and shown how our positions are set up. They're shown how our drone operators work. And no joke, there are high-ranking commanders from the Baltic states, Scandinavia, other Western countries urgently taking notes on how we organize it all. And they say that we have no joke, no irony, no sarcasm here. They say, in our central headquarters, we don't have that quality of equipment or coordination, like you have right near the front, just a few dozen kilometers from the line of contact. So they have plenty to learn, and they're ready to implement it.
How do you think the Russian Federation will explain now, or perhaps explain in the future, that they were supposedly fighting against Ukraine and NATO, right? So there would be, a situation where they need to justify themselves. No military presence in Ukraine, not even a trace of NATO here at all. But let's take a moment to look at the eastern borders, right, of NATO, which are, as you might expect, quite important. Right next to the Russian Federation. Finland, Poland, what else do we have? The Baltic states, which are also changing laws now, strengthening their military presence. So essentially NATO has come right up to the Russian Federation, not just in Ukraine, but in other areas too. How are they going to explain that?
Good question. First of all, they can explain it or not, or they can just not explain it. The simplest thing is, don't talk about it. Especially since we both know very well that the heads of the largest TV channels in the Russian Federation attend weekly meetings at President Putin's administration with Alexei Gromov or his subordinates, who dictate to them, say this, don't say that, emphasize this, emphasize that, don't mention this at all. And that's how the weekly agenda is formed for all the major TV channels. So the first solution, no prob. Well, if you don't want to cover a problem, don't speak. Pretend it doesn't exist. If someone raises the issue, find a reason to open a criminal case against them. Easy, that's how it's done. If you look at the situation through the Kremlin's lens, through the Kremlin's binoculars, for example, you put yourself... I always suggest this game. If you want to understand the enemy, put yourself in their shoes. And from the Kremlin's perspective, you're standing on that, that Kremlin wall, right? Looking at the whole Western world. What can you do? You can play the card, first and foremost, that we are, as usual, an island of stability and everyone wants to conquer us. See how they're getting closer and closer to us. And I told you so. I told you even earlier, they want to conquer us. See, NATO is militarizing. Scandinavia is militarizing. Those frantic bolts, what scoundrels. I told you, all of this can be beautifully wrapped in shiny propaganda packaging and sold to the public. And they'll say again, Vladimir Putin is great, or whoever the leader is.
And to declare a general mobilization, which do you think they'll fall for it or not? Will they declare it or not? We already see such echoes of what is happening, of future events, that there are already some collapses. Yes, on men in the Russian Federation. Raids, excuse me. And actually, the people do not really like this particular story, to be honest.
Well, the people don't like it, but what do? They are all submissive. Like it or not, get in the paddy wagon.
Bear it, my beauty.
Yes, it's all there. They accept it all, unfortunately. So far, Buzification has affected literally 1, maybe 2 regions, and even then it was likely due to a failure in the recruitment plan, and they had to urgently fix that failure by the end of the month, so they turned on the Buzification mode. Most likely, after all, yes, some kind of mobilization will be carried out after the parliamentary elections, because despite the fact that the Kremlin will draw any number in the elections, still no one wants to shake this ice floe so that penguins start falling off it. No one wants to? And most likely, in my opinion, it will be a tougher mobilization than it is now. A contract basis, but not forced, like grabbing everyone on the street as much as possible. At least I'm counting on that, and judging by the signs I see, it will most likely be something in between. Plus, there are rumors that the Russian Federation is still trying to reach an agreement with neighboring countries so that they don't let citizens of the Russian Federation of military age out, or let them into their territory.
Well, yes, we already remember that there were such stories. All crossings are being closed, railway ones. Literally recently there was such information. All right, we've heard your opinion. Thank you so much for finding the time to talk to our audience. We are always glad to have you as our guest.
Thank you very much. Take care. Goodbye.